Alright friends, welcome back to English Comprehension and Vocabulary. We are going to deliberate on the editorial of the Hindu on 20th January as we announced 2 days ago, and tomorrow's discussion will be with regard to the business line editorial of today, that is stonewalling by the Reserve Bank of India, and today's discussion is with regard to rebooting disinvestment, right. So, let us go ahead. Disinvestment, it talks about disinvestment, and two important aspects you should know before going ahead. One is what is meant by reboot. Reboot has got two meanings. All of you are familiar with the meaning with regard to the computers. In computers, reboot means to switch it off and on, that means to switch off and start again. The user should reboot the computer when it got hanged. So, this is the normal word you use in computers, reboot, but when the same word is used in economy, that gives a different meaning. That means to change, to make a change in order to have a new beginning, to make a change in order to have a new beginning altogether, to herald a new era, that is to make a change. So, here Nepal should reboot its economy after years of Maoist disturbances, rebooting its economy. So, this means that it has to start afresh, it has to give a new beginning, altogether new era. So, in that context this reboot is used, that means to make a change. And here certain aspects you should not forget. This article is with regard to general insurance companies. There are 5 general insurance companies in the government sector, and it is talking about these 5. In fact, I am not talking about agriculture insurance and all those things. I am talking about the general insurance companies which are indicated in the article, because government took a decision to reduce government shareholding from 100% to 75%, and here GICRE 2 points I would like to tell you. It is India's only reinsurer, that is one point, and it is associated with the starting of India Nuclear Insurance Pool. These two things do not forget when you look at GICRE, and at present these are 100% owned by Government of India. At present these are 100% owned by Government of India. That is why at present these are public sector private limited companies, and in future 25% shareholding will be held by people like you and me. That means 25% public shareholding will be there, 75% government shareholding will be there, and subsequently they will become public sector public limited companies. That is what we have discussed number of times in recent current affairs. This is difference between public sector, private sector. This talks about ownership. This is public. Before going into public limited, private limited, let us look at this divestment, disinvestment. Divestment, disinvestment basically talks about this selling government share in public sector enterprises. If 5%, 10% is sold by keeping majority shareholding, that is minority stake sale, and this is a strategic sale when majority shareholding is sold, right. So, here we are talking about minority stake sale with regard to selling of 25% share in general insurance companies. So, once this 25% is sold through the listing in stock exchanges like Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange, then these 5 will become public sector, public limited companies. Here see the difference between public limited, private limited. It talks about basically the shareholding, whether it is allowed by public or not, right. Let us come back to the passage. To gain some perspective, on the centre's decision to divest 25% of the stake, to sell 25% of the ownership. Stake means ownership. To sell 25% of the ownership in 5 public sector general insurers. Consider these numbers. to gain some perspective. That means, to look at this instance, to look at the decision of the government of India with regard to selling 25% shareholding. If you want more to look at this sentence, you require some more information. Here, perspective, I gave 2 examples. You will be very clear about perspective meaning. The Hindu, famous newspaper, the Hindu writes from socialist perspective. That means presenting a view or opinion. So, the Hindu writes from socialist perspective, and here a boy has got 90% marks this year. In fact, if I say Raju got 90% this year, you may not be able to appreciate much, but if I say Raju got 90% this year, to put this into perspective, he got 60% last year. So, how much improvement is there, you can usually judge, and the sentence of Raju got 90% this year has got more meaning when I put into this perspective of 60% last year. So, perspective means basically to compare something so as to judge it correctly. This is very, very important. Normally, we hear about perspective several times, but we do not give much importance to this word. Basically, this perspective is used to look at the aspect of judging the matter more clearly. Let us come back to this passage. To gain more judgment, that means to look at this with much more analysis on the center's decision, consider these numbers. That means, before judging the government decision, before coming to the conclusion on government's decision, you have to consider the next thing, that is, last year the gross premium income of 4 of these companies, he is writing the names of these 4 companies, increased by over 12%. Last year, gross premium income of 4 of these companies increased by over 12%. I just now told you, I told you in the previous classes also, here in between this and this, there that gives additional information. Please understand, when the sentence is framed like this, it gives additional information. He is talking about income of 4 these companies, then subsequently he is telling what are these 4 companies, right. So, the 4 companies income is increased by over 12%, but this is very important. Whenever anything but is there in the sentence, it gives something opposite. So far, by reading up to 12%, any one of us come to the conclusion that they are doing well, they are doing excellent, because it is increased by over 12%. But when somebody says but, our curiosity increases. That means it is not all of 12%, something wrong, right. But their profits after tax fell by more than half. So, if you read this sentence, then you will come to the conclusion, and but is used so as to indicate till here, till you are reading this 12%, you read up to 12%. Do not read the next sentence, you read only the sentence up to 12%. If you do not read the next sentence, you will have beautiful opinion about 4 companies, but start reading from but their profits, that means it is the opinion which is something different from the previous sentence. So, the fact is something different from the previous sentence, but their profits after tax fell by more than half from a year earlier, from rupees 3000 crore to 1499 crore. So, the premium increased by 12%, but profits fell down. What it indicates? It indicates some deeper problem with this general insurance companies. When premium is increased by 12%, profits are to be increased, but profits fell. So, it shows something wrong. That is why here he used to gain some perspective on the center's decision, to give the judgment on the center's decision. You have to know all these things, then only you can comment on the center's decision. right. So, we learnt about perspective. Gross, all of you are familiar with gross. Gross means total before deductions. The gross income of Rani is rupees 1 lakh per month, but her net income is rupees 60,000. I need not explain much. A closer scrutiny reveals that high underwriting losses, there are high underwriting losses which increased 55% in the year. Why the profits fell? Because underwriting losses increased. A close scrutiny, last time I explained about scrutiny, and I am giving with one more example here. Scrutiny means careful and detailed examination of something in order to get real information about it. Here scrutiny, the statistics of total value of currency notes printed and demonetized notes which were deposited in the banking system will come under close scrutiny. Will come under close scrutiny means will come under careful examination. Why now? Previously also Reserve Bank of India is releasing such type of figures, but now they will be under more scrutiny because of demonetization. Scrutiny means careful examination, that is very important. And underwriting, we talked about underwriting losses. Underwriting has got two meanings, please understand, because these things quite often appear in economics. Here underwriting means some investment banks, all of you are familiar with investment banks. Investment banks looks at raising investments for companies. Investment banks looks at raising investments for companies. They look at mergers and acquisition of companies, and investment banks basically raise investments for companies like Reliance Industries, Mahindra and Mahindra, and this is known as underwriting. Underwriting is the process of raising investments by investment banks for the companies. And another meaning is there in insurance sector. Here, agreeing to bear the financial risk inherent in an insurance contract. Underwriting means when we are paying premium to the insurance company, when we are paying premium to the insurance company, they are agreeing to bear the risk. And this underwriting is agreeing to bear the financial risk inherent in insurance contract. And this underwriting income is reduced. That's what the news item talks about. Underwriting income means premiums collected minus expenses incurred and claims paid out. Premiums, why they are collecting? Premiums insurance companies are collecting because they have to pay in case of there is some loss. If a person dies, something is to be paid, and if some theft occurs, if some fire occurs, they have to pay claims. So here premiums collected minus claims paid out, normally it should be plus and substantial, and we will go back to the passage to look at what went wrong with underwriting income. So the underwriting meaning, scrutiny meaning, we understood clearly. A close scrutiny reveals that the underwriting losses which increased 55%, there are losses, underwriting losses. That means here what we have discussed, premium minus claims. Premium minus claims is into negative. So there are underwriting losses which increased 55% in the year, were largely responsible for profits falling at these firms even as revenues rose. Even though revenues went up, but underwriting losses are the main reason, were largely responsible. Were means he was telling in past tense, right? National insurance took the sharpest hit. What is the meaning of this? National insurance took the sharpest hit means national insurance is the worst performer. Sharpest hit. He is talking about all the losses. National insurance took the sharpest hit means it is the worst performer with 148% rise in underwriting losses. So underwriting losses are there. Why underwriting losses are there? Because of the reason nobody is there to question it, because 100% owned by government. when 100% is owned by government, who will question these general insurance companies? No one is there to question these companies. That is why underwriting losses increased. Right. So, let us move on to the next paragraph. Public shareholding in these firms, I have already told you, at present 100% by government. In future, it will become 75% by government. 25% stake will be sold. Those 25% will be purchased by persons like you and me. So, subsequently what we will do? We will question the general insurance firms. What bloody you are doing? Why there are losses? Why the underwriting income is loss? At present 100% is owned by government. That is why nobody is there to question, because government, all of you are clear about lot of lethargy in the government. So, somebody will be there to question when this public shareholding is there. So, that is the main purpose of minority stake sale, which is known as disinvestment. One type of disinvestment is minority stake sale. In fact, public shareholding is required so as to allow somebody to question the government organizations, and subsequently their efficiency will increase, their accountability will increase, their transparency will increase, lethargy will come down. That is the main purpose of this selling 25% stake. So, public shareholding in these firms will lead to questions about such outliers in performance. Outliers, which is not normal. Outliers, this word I would like to explain you. Such outliers in performance. Normally performance is expected somewhat 2%, 1% here and there, but these type of losses in underwriting, 148% loss. So, these are outliers. Outliers means which are not normal. They are something different from normal attitude. Let us look at these examples. Outlier. Here some government honest officials are there, and normally the perception is corruption is there everywhere in government sector. The perception I am talking about. Government sector, there is lot of corruption is there, and there are some honest officials are there. So, this sentence please read it. Corruption pervaded to all the levels. I am talking about politicians here. Corruption pervaded all the levels. The honest politicians are outliers in the present system. So, outliers means they are different from all others. 95% one type, 1 or 2% other type. They are outliers. Here honest politicians are outliers in the present system, because 95% of the politicians are perceived to be corrupt nowadays. So, honest politicians are outliers in the present system. Honest bureaucrats are outliers in the present system. This sentence is correct if we assume maximum politicians are corrupt and maximum bureaucrats are corrupt. If that is not the case, you cannot use this. Please do not take it 100%. I am just considering only as an example. It is not to criticize any section of society or politicians or bureaucracy. This is, I have taken only as an example. Then you see about Donald Trump. Donald Trump says that this climate change, it is useless. There is no truth in this global warming and climate change. Donald Trump says that this climate pact, Paris Pact is useless. So, you can say Donald Trump is an outlier as far as climate change is concerned, because he is not agreeing with the opinion of the others. That is why he is an outlier. So, I hope that you understood the meaning of outlier. So, public shareholding in these firms will lead to questions about such outliers in performance that have not been heard under the centre's present 100% ownership structure, at least in the public domain, because when central government is holding 100% public domain, these issues do not come into picture, and that have not been heard under the centre's present 100% ownership. These type of outliers will not be there if public shareholding is increased. Then this, as the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said in his budget speech last year, Arun Jaitley said in his budget speech last year, would lead to, this would lead to, 2 commas are there. 2 commas, he is giving additionally, he is clarifying with additional information. This means you may not understand. That is why this comma, as Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said in his budget speech last year, comma, that means he is adding additional information. Please read English sentence perfectly, otherwise you will miss somewhere. So, this would lead to, you omit this in between commas, nothing will happen. Only that in between commas is given only to make you understand about that situation or circumstance. So, this would lead to greater transparency and accountability, as I have already told you. It will also allow the firms, including General Insurance Corporation of India, to raise more capital from the markets. Naturally, when 25% public shareholding is there, then they can get from the markets, instead of relying on taxpayer money alone. Relying on taxpayer money means central government money. Central government money, where it comes from taxpayers like you and me. So, whenever the article says taxpayers money, it belongs to government, because we are paying taxes to government. So, it will also allow the firms to get money from the markets instead of relying on taxpayer money. For instance, India's 1500 crore nuclear liability insurance pool created by GIC. I told you GIC created India's first nuclear insurance pool, that is rupees 1500 crore India nuclear insurance pool. This is created by GIC. For instance, that means he is telling, in the previous sentence he talked about they can get money from the market instead of relying on government. Then, for instance, India's 1500 crore nuclear liability insurance pool created by GIC and other insurers perhaps needs more muscle to create confidence among very nuclear suppliers. This insurance pool is to take care of the risks for the nuclear suppliers. If something goes wrong, then the third party insurance will be paid from this nuclear insurance pool. Third party claims will be paid by the nuclear insurance pool. And here two words, please look at it. When 1500 crore nuclear liability insurance pool is created by GIC, then it perhaps needs more muscle to create confidence among the very nuclear suppliers. So, nuclear suppliers are very and muzzle, these two words let us look at. Muzzle, all of you are familiar with muzzle. Muzzle has got two meanings. One is, all of you are familiar with the muscle in your body, that is one meaning. In the economic perspective, muscle means clout or power. China has got financial muscle to dictate its own terms in 21st century. Its economy is $10 trillion. Our economy is $2 trillion. So, China has got financial muscle to dictate its own terms in 21st century. So, here also public shareholding, if it is increased, then what will happen? The insurance firm will have more finance. When more financing capabilities are there to get more finance from the market, then its confidence level will increase for the people whoever need insurance, especially this nuclear suppliers. Their doubts will go away. Very word, I will explain you with some example. Very. Here you see there is one tourist place, but theft is quite common there. This is tourist place, beautiful tourist place, but theft is quite common. So, then look at this example. Tourists should be wary about people, as theft is quite common in this area. Tourists should be wary about people. Wary means basically not completely trusting or not certain. Now, the nuclear suppliers are not completely trusting, and once this public shareholding is there, then it will give more financial muscle to the general insurance company to operate India nuclear insurance pool, 1500 crore rupee nuclear insurance pool, and that will give more confidence to the nuclear suppliers. At present, confidence is not there. Very nuclear suppliers, their confidence is not up to the mark, and once this type of actions are taken, then their confidence will increase. Their element of uncertainty in their minds will go away. That is why he used this word vary. This is very important word. Let us move on. That it took 11 months for a budget announcement to secure in principle cabinet approval. In fact, this was announced in the budget, and it took 11 months almost next budget is going to be presented. It took 11 months for a budget announcement to secure in principle cabinet approval is a symptomatic of the lethargy in the disinvestment program. Symptomatic of the lethargy in the disinvestment program. Lethargy. They are not interested in doing the things. Basically government sector. Government sector is basically with the lethargy. Symptom I will explain. In principle, that is as a policy it was approved in the budget. As a policy it was approved in the budget, but government took 11 months to get cabinet approval. It shows that there is a lot of lethargy in the disinvestment program of the government. In principle means agreeing as a policy. Agreeing as a policy, but the final commitment will be subject to certain conditions. Final commitment will be subject to meeting certain conditions, but as a policy it was accepted. That is in principle approval. RBI granted in principle approval to payment banks and small finance banks. It does not mean that straight away they can come and establish the bank. They have to give certain documents, and if those documents are fulfilling various mandatory requirements, then final approval will be given by RBI. So, in principle means as a policy it is agreed, but finally final confirmation will be subject to the documents, submission of certain conditions, right. So, this is in principle. Symptom. Symptom is basically, all of you are familiar with the symptom. These are the symptoms of diabetes. Basically, any single problem that is caused by and shows a more serious or general problem. If somebody is feeling some problem, that may be symptom of some disease. If somebody is feeling something, that may be symptom of some disease. And I gave an example. There is lot of discontent against the government. Unemployment is high, inflation is high, jobs are not there. When there is lot of discontent against the government, then violence broke out. So, violence, recent outbreak of violence is the symptom of simmering discontent against the government. It is the symptom. Excessive thirst is the symptom of diabetes. So, like that, this is in fact which shows there is a bigger problem. So, symptom is used under those circumstances. Lethargy, I have already told you, that is basically unwilling to do anything. All of you are seeing government offices. Government offices are with more and more lethargy. Coal India Limited is one example. Because of lethargy of Coal India Limited, we are importing coal. So, Coal India Limited is one example of having lethargy in public sector enterprises. I hope that you understood all these words. So, 11 months it took. So, it itself shows that 11 months to secure in principle approval from the cabinet, it itself is somewhat a symptom of lethargic administration, right. Then Prime Minister Narendra Modi had used, because the issue pertaining to some 2014. He is referring to some old issue, that is why he used had. Otherwise, he could have used has, but he used had because it pertains to some long ago issue, and you see in between these two he is giving some additional information. Additional information is during his maiden official visit to US in 2014. Maiden official visit for the first time. If something is taken up for the first time, then only you have to say maiden visit, right. So, maiden is to be used when something of its kind is done for the first time. When something of its kind is done for the first time. Please look into this. Without a stop, without any single stop, if the government introduces some maiden direct flight from Mumbai to New York, normally our flights have some landing in between, maybe at Amsterdam, London, but if some direct flight is introduced from Mumbai to New York for the first time in the history of India, then you can say the Prime Minister inaugurated maiden direct flight from Mumbai to New York. So, maiden is used when something is done for the first time for first for its type, right. So, here let us come back to the passage. Here in the passage, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had asserted early in his term that government had no business being in business. Government will not be there in the business. What is the need for government to be in insurance business? What is the need for government to be in banking business? So, the meaning of this is the government had no business being in business. In fact, in 2014, government announced that less governance, that means undue interference will not be there in the affairs, right. So, government basically with the, sorry, it is not less governance, I have forgotten that catchy phrase of our Prime Minister, but the meaning I will explain you. The meaning is government will reduce interference in the aspects of governance, right. Probably less government, more governance. The correct phrase is less government. Government's role will be less, but more governance, right. Government will concentrate on more governance. If I am wrong, please correct me, but the meaning of this is government had no business being in business, means government's role in the activities wherever it is not required will be reduced. It took 2 more years for the cabinet. It took 2 more years. That means something was told by the Prime Minister in 2014, but something in fact not in tune with that happened. That is why he used it. It took 2 more years. In fact, after the Prime Minister's decision, this could have been done immediately after 2 days. It took 2 more years for the cabinet to sign off on the first strategic sale. He is talking about transfer of ownership and control under its watch in the loss making Bharat Pumps and Compressors. So, he is talking about this Bharat Pumps and Compressors. In fact, in 2014, after the Prime Minister's announcement, it took 2 years to take the first decision of strategic sale. He is talking about Bharat Pumps and Compressors. This strategic sale decision was taken few months ago. This is strategic sale. That is why I explained you in the beginning. What is minority stake sale? What is a strategic sale? Strategic sale means totally transfer of ownership and control. So, management control will be handed over to private parties. So, this is strategic sale. That is why I explained in the beginning. So, after the Prime Minister's announcement in 2014, it took 2 years for the government to ensure strategic sale of this Bharat Pumps and Compressors. So, as far as disinvestment is concerned, government is too slow. That is the meaning of this article. There is no point in wasting so much time. In December, it approved the sale of land. In December, it approved the sale of land with 4 sick public sector pharma firms with a plan to close 2 and explore the option of strategic sale for Hindustan Antibiotics and Bengal Chemicals. The sentence is very clear. In December, approved the sale of land with 4 sick public sector pharma enterprises, and it plans to close 2 and explore the option of strategic sale. Strategic sale means government coming out of management control, selling the majority stake, right. This month, stock exchanges were informed. This month, stock exchanges were informed about a proposal to sell 26% stake in heavy equipment maker BEML to a strategic investor. So, BEML 26% stake will be sold, and that was also informed to the stock exchanges. The political economy window for such divestment is not unlimited. The political economy window for such divestment is not unlimited, right. Even the Atal Bihari Vajpayee regime, which spearheaded the strategic sale of public sector firms. Here, what is the meaning of spearheaded? Then Atal Bihari Vajpayee regime, which spearheaded the strategic sale of public sector firms, in fact spearheaded in Vajpayee regime. Spearheaded, let us look at the meaning. Spearhead means somebody taking the lead. This word you come across quite frequently. Spearhead, somebody taking the lead. If you look at India's missile program, APJ Abdul Kalam spearheaded India's missile program, ballistic missile program. So, spearhead means a person or group that leads a project, right. Here recently in Syria, when rebels were targeted, Russian troops spearheaded the action against rebels in Syria. So, to lead something such as an attack or a course of action, under these circumstances spearhead is used. In those days, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was the Prime Minister from 1998 to 2004, spearheaded the strategic sale. Spearheaded means he took the leadership position, he headed the program and he took lot of interest. That is the meaning of spearheaded. Spearheaded the strategic sale of public sector firms engaged in businesses ranging from bread to phosphates, raised 84% of such revenue during its third and fourth years in office. So, during Vajpayee was in office, during third year and fourth year, he raised 84% through strategic sale. So, Vajpayee spearheaded this disinvestment and now the things are not moving in the right direction. Halfway through its term, what is the meaning of this? Government's term is 5 years. Halfway through its term, that means 2.5 years completed. Halfway through its term, it is a time this government's disinvestment plans gather steam. That means here that is the time that government's disinvestment program must gather steam. I will explain you two words quite frequently. One is gather steam, second one is gather dust. These two words you should not forget. Gather dust. When the proposal of the government is there for 2-3 years, when some bill is introduced in parliament and that bill could not be passed for 3-4 years, then you can say the bill is gathering dust. That means no action and not to be used for a long time. With that meaning, when some bill is introduced, when some bill is proposed, but for 2-3 years it is not moving ahead. So, under those circumstances, we use the term gather dust. The bill, the proposed bill of the government on land acquisition is gathering dust. No action on that. And similar word is gather steam. This is another important one, gather steam. The concept of universal basic income is gathering steam. That means it is picking up. The idea is picking up. The universal basic income idea is picking up. And nowadays more and more people are talking about universal basic income. That is why you can say the concept of universal basic income is gathering steam, right. So, here the last sentence is, it is a time this government's disinvestment plans gather steam. That means they must pick up. Government wasted 2.5 years. So, it is high time government's actions must pick up. So, with that meaning this gather steam was used. So, here this spearhead, gather steam, gather dust, these words are very important, please do not forget. So, the conclusion is government is delaying the things badly, it is not showing utmost interest and it is not in tune with the Prime Minister's commitment of government has got no business to be in business. Disinvestment program is not going on smoothly. Under these circumstances, as 2.5 years is completed, it is the high time that government should concentrate on strategic sale of assets. Right friends, this is all about today's comprehension. I hope you understood several words, and tomorrow 24th January we will have stonewalling by the Reserve Bank of India. This article, this is editorial of today's business line. It talks about RBI and its independence and its reputation after demonetization. Nowadays so many articles are coming in this context. Right friends, with this let us conclude today's editorial, and tomorrow comprehension will be at 12 noon. Have a nice day. Thank you.